Okay, so how do you even begin to understand a company that literally helps feed a nation of over 270 million people? Well, you could just follow the news, sure, but we're going to go way deeper. We're going to crack open the story of a corporate giant, PT Jaffa Comfeed Indonesia, by looking at the story it tells about itself through 15 years of its own annual reports.
And that whole story really kicks off with their guiding philosophy, their corporate motto, growing towards mutual prosperity. You know, it's a pretty powerful idea. It's this concept that success isn't just about them, it's about lifting everyone up with them, their shareholders, their partners, their employees, and the whole community. We're going to see how this idea of shared success really plays out in their strategy and, of course, in the numbers.
All right, so here's the game plan. First, we'll get a handle on just how massive JPFA really is. Then we'll unpack their core strategy, how they're built. We'll look at how they deal with risk, their big shift towards sustainability, check out their incredible financial growth, and then wrap it all up by asking, what does this all mean for the future of food?
First up, let's meet this protein powerhouse. And honestly, it's kind of hard to overstate just how critical JPFA is to Indonesia's food supply. So let's try to get a real sense of the scale we're dealing with here.
Just look at this list. It tells you everything. JPFA isn't just one kind of business, it's a whole chain of them, all linked together. I mean, they're making the animal feed, breeding the day-old chicks, running huge commercial chicken farms, they're in the water with fish and shrimp, on the land with cattle farming and beef processing. They even make consumer foods and animal vaccines. They're involved in pretty much every single step. So the key idea here, the thing you gotta remember, is vertical integration. Think of it like this. Imagine a pizza restaurant. But this restaurant doesn't just make pizza. Oh no. It owns the farm that grows the wheat. It owns the mill that makes the flour, it owns the farm for the tomatoes and the cattle for the cheese, and it even owns the trucks that deliver everything. That's JPFA. By owning the whole supply chain, they control the quality, the cost, the supply. It is, without a doubt, their superpower.
So how did they actually build this thing? This whole strategy didn't just happen overnight. It was a very deliberate, calculated plan to build a totally self-sufficient, end-to-end protein ecosystem.
This timeline here is basically their playbook. You can see these key moments where they didn't just get bigger, they got smarter, more connected. That 2012 merger with multi-breeder Autorama, a huge poultry breeder, that was a massive deal. And then more recently, in 2020, bringing So Good Food into the fold got them even closer to the end consumer. Every single move was about tightening their grip on that entire chain, from the very first seed to the final forkful.
But here's the thing. Being a giant doesn't make you invincible, right? JPFA's reports are actually full of all the storms they have to constantly navigate, from totally unpredictable markets to sudden changes in government rules. So the question is, how do they stay standing?
Well, they build in resilience through really smart strategies, and we can see examples right in their reports. For instance, to deal with wild swings in commodity prices for their animal feed, they work super closely with local farmers. To handle the chaos of currency fluctuations, they use complex financial tools like hedging. And when the government issues new regulations, like ordering a poultry cull to stabilize prices, their policy is crystal clear. You comply and you adapt.
Now, reading through 15 years of reports shows you this really fascinating shift. Something that kind of started out as basic corporate social responsibility has morphed into a core part of their strategy, something called ESG.
So just in case you're not familiar with the term, ESG stands for Environmental, Social, and Governance. It's basically a framework people use to look at how a company is doing beyond just the money it makes. You know, how does it treat the planet? How does it treat its people? And is it run well?
And you can actually see this evolution happening in their reports. Look at this. Back in 2015, they're setting up formal committees for things like executive pay. Fast forward to 2019, and they're highlighting serious anti-corruption policies and a whistleblowing system. And then, just last year, they created a dedicated sustainability committee. This isn't just talk. You're watching the architecture of a modern corporation get built, piece by piece, over time.
And to show you that the social part of ESG isn't just corporate speak, get a load of this number from their 2023 report. Over 1 million straight working hours without a single accident at just one of their facilities. That's a real, tangible stat that shows a serious commitment to keeping their people safe.
Okay, so all this strategy, this risk management, this evolution to ESG, what does it all look like on the bottom line? Let's check out the numbers, because they tell a story of absolutely massive growth.
First up, net sales. Just look at this. In only 7 years, from 2017 to 2024, their annual sales pretty much doubled.
jumping from just under 30 trillion rupiah to nearly 56 trillion. That right there is proof that their integrated strategy is working, and they're grabbing more and more of the market.
Of course, to support that kind of sales explosion, you need stuff. More factories, more farms, more equipment. And you can see that right here. Their total assets ballooned from around 21 trillion to almost 35 trillion rupiah in that same time frame. This just shows the enormous amount of money they've invested and the sheer physical scale of their operation.
And finally, total equity. Think of this as the company's net worth. It more than doubled, from about 8 trillion to nearly 17 trillion rupiah. This tells us the company didn't just get bigger, it got fundamentally stronger, more valuable, and way more financially sound.
So, after digging through all of these reports, what's the big takeaway? What can JPFA's journey tell us about the bigger picture, and maybe even the future of how we all eat? The story we've seen in these reports really unfolds in 3 main acts. Step 1. Build a vertically integrated machine so you can control everything. Step 2. Become an absolute expert at dealing with the constant chaos of the outside world. And Step 3. Evolve your company's DNA to make sustainability and good governance a top priority. It's basically a playbook for how to build a modern food giant.
And that leaves us with one last really big question. In a world with more and more people and more pressure on our food systems, what is the role of these massive integrated companies? Are they the key to making sure we have a sustainable and secure food future, or do they create a whole new set of challenges? The reports give us the blueprint of how they work, but the answer to that question, well, that's something we all need to think about.